Jim Lawyer. I'm responsible for the strategic partnerships and the business development for 700Credit.
Yep.
700Credit, for those of you who don't know, we are the largest credit compliance and fraud solution provider in the automotive space.
Yep.
We have over 22,500 and change dealers as of January of this year, which is pretty exciting. And we are hands down the largest integrator. It's probably easier, without sounding arrogant, for us to say that we have integrations with almost every platform provider here, from F&I solutions like Route One and DealerTrack to the DMS platform, CRMs, and on. So,
yeah.
And of course, with you at Orbee.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Before we get into our integration,
Sure.
Is there anything your team? What's the theme for the dealers here at NADA? What are you kind of pitching to them, trying to educate them on? What's the theme for this show and the rest of the year?
Yeah, excellent question this time of year. In the past, obviously being the largest credit provider in the space, the use of credit in unique ways. Dealers have always traditionally used credit in the F&I office. So when a consumer is ready to purchase a car, the dealer has to pull a credit report.
Towards the end of the process.
Exactly, the end. With the advent of pre-qualification solutions and soft pulls about 10 years, that was really a very strong theme. This year, though, two areas. Heavy focus, fraud, identity fraud is becoming a huge concern, and also safeguards, which really dovetails on some of the things we'll probably talk about. Safeguarding the consumer's data. So as a credit provider, we're responsible for ensuring that that credit is stored safely and protected from hackers and those types of things. So there are some of our solutions that help dealers protect that consumer's data, whether it's through credit applications and storage of that data.
Okay, all right. I'm glad you brought up the security part and how you're storing that sensitive information. And I do want to clarify for people that aren't familiar. We've been integrated for a while. We are sort of installed or embedded within 700Credit tools that are on a dealership website, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're seeing that sensitive data. Orbee's main job is to understand how a shopper is interacting with your tools, so that we know when they start and when they don't finish. And when they don't finish is the key part, because that's what we really want to tell dealers that are using both of our software. It's like, hey, 700Credit is converting this much for you guys, but here's the lost opportunity. Here's where we know who these shoppers are via sometimes email if they've been identified before, or just something identifiable that we can retarget them across the web. We know that they didn't finish it. So let's put more emphasis on getting them to finish that, because in this era of affordability, that should be a strategy.
We couldn't agree more. I mean, you may recall personally, I've come from the automotive.com space over the years, and so when the internet first came around in the 90s, myself and that Vice President Gore guy invented the internet. The two of us invented that. But inventory was the focus.
Right.
Consumers just wanted to shop for cars and view inventory. Right. And that was the big deal. But today, like you said, consumers are much more concerned with affordability. Right. And more so, the behavior of that consumer has really changed how dealers market to them, how they address them through omni-channels and all those things that
Right.
And credit, their ability to afford, all that has moved to the front of the process.
Right.
And we've seen that behavior change by the dealers. So the dealers are now saying, okay, let's take these pre-qualification widgets, if you will, put them on our website, put them out front, put our credit applications on our website.
Right.
The challenge, though, is the dealers have, up until recent, the more savvy dealers are really directing consumers to their online solutions, because car dealers want to complete the sale on that day. Right? They don't want to wait 5 days, 6 days. In the boat business, lending comes later.
Right.
Well, in the car business, lending comes now.
Right.
And so we think it's a great partnership with you all, because if a consumer, or if a dealer directs the consumer to the credit application or the pre-qualification and they bail, well, then what?
Yeah.
They don't know. The dealers are, well, we lost them. And sometimes, unfortunately, they blame the application.
Right. And it could be a variety of things. It's, it got busy, didn't have the information I needed to finish it at the time.
Yeah.
People abandon forms all the time.
Yeah.
And so what our integration allows is more at-bats, more chances to finish the application and in creative ways. Because, so when we identify someone has started it and finished, there's a few ways we could sort of trigger this and remind them. The next time they come back to the website, we can pop up a message that says, hey, do you want to finish your credit application that you started? Or if we know who they are with their email in the Orbee system, we can send them an email saying, hey, come back, finish your application. Or there could be a whole advertising campaign where some of the creative on a Facebook ad is about 2 minutes to get pre-qualified, click here. Like things like that, where it's just, their last step in the journey, tailor the message to bring them back to finish that process.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be focused on.
And I would add one other thing too, because as you mentioned, you don't know why they bail.
Right.
It could be any number of, it's interesting. I always ask my friends that why they go to Amazon and they stick things in their shopping cart and they don't buy.
Yeah.
And I go, why didn't you buy? And the answer is always, 800 different reasons.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing certainly happens with pre-qualification and credit applications. And I think it provides, your dealers the opportunity kind of really to extend some trust too. It's like, what's your concern here? How can I help you through this process? Because, they stare at a blank form and they're not sure. They maybe not know the dealership very well. Yeah. They don't know what's going to happen when they press the button.
Right.
So I think that's a great opportunity.
They're like, is it going to hurt my credit score? Or that's a big one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's, it's so funny you say that is consumers have been programmed by solutions like Capital One to say, oh, it's not going to hurt your credit score. Yet, interestingly enough, consumers still question that. They go, is this going to hurt our credit score?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a nice video that you guys could retarget, Orbee and the dealers, to retarget that consumer to say, hey, listen, if you were concerned about your credit, well, doesn't impact it, and here's the reasons why. And I would say there are many dealers who in the past, let's just assume nobody does it anymore, but dealers would blanket the credit applications.
Right.
And then, lose the trust of the consumer.
Right. And sometimes they would drive traffic to the credit application thinking that, they had their mind in the right place. Like, hey, we should get this done earlier in the buying journey. But it shouldn't be a blanket because everybody shops a little bit differently.
Exactly.
We're saying identify the people that have shown interest in getting pre-qualified or are submitting a credit application and just help them finish that process.
Yeah, help them through the journey for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and as you know, the journey is in the car business. It's not linear.
Oh no,
everybody used to think it was. Right, prior to the internet, but it's certainly not today. I mean, if you think about the whole go online and buy the car completely. Well, that's still less than 1% of the people.
Yeah.
So again, I think being able to retarget, take that consumer behavior and identify where they're at in those different journey points and bring them back through.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gold.
Wow. And before we go, I do want to touch on that.
Sure.
The journey not being linear is especially true for shoppers that are cross-shopping multiple car dealership websites.
Yeah.
So let's say you're a group and, you have a lot of locations in a vicinity. You might have a shopper that shows some interest in getting pre-qualified on one website, but then they go and do some things on another website. What Orbee can help a group do is say, hey, this shopper is actually going down the path to get pre-qualified or submit a credit application. They just didn't do it on this website.
Yeah.
So you should treat that person as if to drive traffic back to the credit application, even though they were clicking around somewhere else. So it's all about seeing everything that they're doing on all the domains and all of your group sites and widgets, and then you can really start to figure out, how do I talk to that shop?
Yeah, I would put a pin in that by saying, and again, I think it's huge for dealers to be able to, retarget, this consumer.
Yeah.
Statistically, the consumer, once they're kind of get to this point, they're visiting 2 dealerships tops.
Yeah.
Right. So, this is an opportunity when that consumer has not yet narrowed it to 2, or even if they have, right, now you've got, an opportunity to capture that customer where you might have lost them.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, valuable tool for sure.
Well, Jim, I really appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah. Sure.
This is kind of a short talk, but you and I, we're working on a webinar. Hopefully we can, we had this idea back at Digital Dealer where we want to put an emphasis back on affordability marketing and just the tools that both of us are building. I think could really help dealers focus on.
Yeah, no, we certainly look forward to doing the webinar with you guys as well. I think dealers will learn a lot. I mean, as I've talked with you and Peter, you know, this is still new to dealers, this whole idea of tracking consumers' behaviors across all these platforms.
Right.
And I think a lot of dealers just are still unaware, like, well, what do I do with all this data? And it's a good thing you guys do that, and you guys are obviously on the forefront of doing that. So, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thanks a lot.
All right.